South Park is a show we all know rarely censors itself, but in the wake of a shocking act of real-life violence, one episode of the show is being pulled. On September 10th, conservative political activist and media personality Charlie Kirk was fatally shot during an event at Utah Valley University. The shooting sparked reactions from all across the political spectrum and brought some attention to a recent South Park episode that satirized Charlie Kirk. The season 27 episode Got a Nut, the second episode of the show's current season, originally aired on August 6th of this year. Like much of the current season, it lampoons a current political moment in America from multiple angles. The main plot of the episode involves school counselor Mr. Mackey joining ICE after losing his job due to federal budget cuts. Meanwhile, Cartman starts his own podcast and debates liberals on college campuses, which is an obvious satirical poke at Kirk, who rose to fame for doing just that. The illusion isn't subtle. He even dons the same hairstyle as Kirk. The parody is one of many aimed at administration figures and allies in this latest season, all of which have caused various levels of controversy. While such controversy has long been integral to the show's success, the circumstances have put the episode in an unquestionably fraught position. After the shooting occurred, it didn't take long for Comedy Central to be pressured to pull the episode from the air, with a rerun scheduled during the show's off week. The company ultimately chose to pull the episode from its scheduled time slot. But what did Kirk think about his treatment by South Park? After the episode aired, Kirk appeared on Fox News and called it a badge of honor to be mocked on the show, which he grew up watching. Praising the accuracy of the parody, he said,
"Not only was I honored, they got the little sip of the water correctly, they got the hairdo, the little details are perfect."
He also went on to speak positively about the episode on his YouTube channel, saying,
"I think the whole thing is just awesome and hilarious."
At this point, it's unclear how Kirk's death and the pulling of Got a Nut will affect Trey Parker and Matt Stone's approach to the remainder of Season 27. As longtime champions of free speech who have gone out of their way to battle censorship at every turn throughout their careers, it's very possible they will find a way to address this whole thing in future episodes. What tone they strike and how far they might go with their commentary is anyone's guess. Some people have gone so far as to say that Parker and Stone shouldn't get a chance to do so. One ex-user wrote, "Hate to say it because I was a South Park fan from day one, but that show should now be cancelled." Multiple others chimed in to say that they believe this episode is going to be the one that finally does them in. Comedy Central did not immediately come forward to make an official statement about their decision to pull the episode off the air, and neither did Parker and Stone. While extraordinary circumstances led to Got a Nut being pulled from the air, this isn't the first time someone has opted to censor South Park in the wake of public outrage. It took a while for South Park to fully find its rhythm, but the Season 3 opener, Rainforest, Shmainforest, proved that the third time was definitely the charm for the series. This anti-environmentalist episode was inspired by Parker's real-life experience in Costa Rica. On a recommendation from Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Trey and his girlfriend at the time booked a trip to the rainforest. Probably a bad move, considering Parker's hatred of snakes. In the South Park audio commentary, Parker described the country as, quote, hot and dirty and smelly, expressing frustration with Flea for recommending the trip.
"I hate the rainforest. You go right ahead and plow down this whole thing. That's swell."
Once he came back stateside, he penned a less than flattering episode about the country that finds the South Park kids on a school trip to San Jose. Seeing as the country is depicted as an impoverished nation overrun by insects, snakes, and revolutionaries, it's little wonder that it didn't go over well in Costa Rica, with the country's tourism minister Carlos Benavides denouncing it in 2007. In 2011, MTV Latin America decided to stop airing the original episode, eventually releasing a censored version redubbed by Studio Center in 2012. The finale episode of the three-part Meteor Shower trilogy, Jewbilee is one of Trey and Matt's favorite in the series. It was also the final of 3 episodes the creators still had to make after putting together the full-length film, South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut, and they had more than a touch of vacationitis during its production. Feeling pretty great about their work on the movie, they decided to make the episode as bonkers as possible and just get it over with. The episode revolves around Kyle and Kenny's camping trip with the Jew Scouts on the night of a big meteor shower. Between Kenny's crash course in Judaism and the Tron-inspired vision of a macaroni-pictured crazed Moses, the episode spends plenty of time goofing around with Jewish traditions. Likely owing to concerns about how it would be received, the episode, which first aired in 1999, was not originally dubbed in Hungarian. It was finally released in Hungary on Cool TV in 2005 and became available for sale in that country around the same time. In Hungarian, the episode title translates to Addicts of Religion. In 2001, illusionist David Blaine was at peak popularity, and that made him a prime target for South Park parody. Super Best Friend stepped up to the challenge by imagining a world where Blaine heads up a Scientology-inspired cult called Blaintology, using the art of illusion to lure in acolytes through his magic camp. Impressed by Blaine's magic, Kyle, Stan, Kenny, Cartman, and Butters sign up, only to find themselves shaved bald and trapped in a suicide cult.
I'm not Kyle. I'm Butters. I thought you were Kyle.
No, I'm Stan.
You're Stan? Where's Kenny?
Who are you?
I'm Kyle. Guess who I am, you guys?
With everyone else completely brainwashed, it's up to Stan to save the day with the help of Jesus and his super best friends. A Justice League-style team that consists of Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Muhammad, Lao Tzu, Moses, Joseph Smith, and the Aquaman-inspired Seaman. The episode is brimming with potentially offensive content, but it was the episode's depiction of the Prophet Muhammad that would get it banned years after first airing, amid a rise in threats from extremist Muslims. After one such extremist executed Dutch filmmaker Theon van Gogh in 2004, networks were far less inclined to risk airing images of Muhammad. South Park Studios removed the episode from its available content, and it's one of only a few episodes that can't be found on streaming video. Not even the South Park movie was safe from the banhammer. South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut takes Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny to the big screen, where an R-rated Terrence and Phillip movie results in war kicking off between the United States and Canada. Meanwhile, Paramore's Saddam Hussein and Satan hatch a plot for global domination. Bigger, Longer, and Uncut heavily explores the topic of censorship, something that was on Trey and Matt's mind, considering that their series had already been the target of ban attempts several times in its first 2 seasons. This time it was a depiction of Saddam that sparked anger from, well, Saddam. Unlike the show's other cartoonish figures, Hussein's character uses a photographic cutout of his real head, and he's characterized as a masochist in an abusive relationship with the devil himself. He even gets his own musical number. The real Hussein did not find the joke remotely funny, and the film was banned in Iraq upon its release. After Hussein's arrest, Stone said he had it on good authority that Marines had forced the dictator to watch the film on repeat before his execution. Just as the 90s Beanie Baby craze was fizzling out, the Pokemon explosion began taking over more kiosks and playgrounds across America. Many pearl-clutching parents looked on in helpless horror as kids everywhere became obsessed with the Japanese pocket monsters. Naturally, it was only a matter of time before a reactionary wave of satanic panic rose up against supposedly evil creatures with names like Jigglypuff and Geodude. Groups like the Child Care Action Project railed against the franchise for its violence, magic, mind control, and female characters in crop tops. So of course, the South Park kids had to get in on the fun in the 1999 episode, Chinpokomon. In a clear parody of the adorable anime juggernaut, South Park Elementary is overtaken by a popular series filled with subliminal messaging.
This doesn't make sense. Are those stupid things supposed to be animals or robots or what?
I don't know, but I suddenly kind of want to own them all.
The kids become compelled to buy Chinpokomon products and attend Chinpokomon camp, but it's all secretly a super soldier brainwashing vehicle to train kids for a second attack on Pearl Harbor. Besides the obviously taboo kamikaze joke, the episode also seems to take aim at Emperor Hirohito Showa and relies on a running gag about comparing Japanese and Caucasian genitals. Unsurprisingly, someone felt the episode wouldn't go over well with Japanese audiences, and it was ultimately cut from Japan's Wow Wow Network schedule and the Japanese DVD release. Easily one of the most shocking episodes from the show's early seasons, Cartman Joins NAMBLA is one of a handful of South Park episodes conveniently left off the lineup by Italian free-to-air station Italia 1 during the show's original Italian syndication in 2003. Italian fans had to wait until 2006 before they got the chance to catch it. Although it's hard to pinpoint which offense tipped the scales against it, the episode is full of gasp-worthy gags centered around the North American Man-Boy Love Association. When Cartman sets out on a quest to obtain more mature friends, he turns to the internet, where he immediately finds plenty of grown men eager to meet up with young boys. When his new friends keep getting arrested, Dr. Mephisto suggests he join NAMBLA, the North American Marlon Brando lookalikes. There's some confusion when his plans intersect with the more infamous group with the same acronym. And then there's the episode's B-plot, which revolves around Kenny's extensive efforts to stop his parents from having another child through repeated attempts to induce an abortion. Both storylines are a lot to stomach, and it's not hard to see why Italia 1 felt that audiences weren't quite ready for it. The two-part storyline covered in the episodes Do the Handicapped Go to Hell and Probably was also controversial enough to get cut from Italia 1. The story serves as a follow-up to Bigger, Longer, and Uncut by revisiting Satan's relationship with Saddam Hussein. The trouble starts when Father Maxi frightens the bejesus out of South Park's Gentile population with a good old-fashioned hellfire and brimstone sermon. Scared straight, Cartman, Kenny, and Stan decide to get religious, but soon begin to ask some inconvenient questions. Specifically, they want to know whether or not their Jewish and disabled friends will go to hell for not confessing their sins. Things go completely off the rails when the children become disillusioned after uncovering Maxi's hypocrisy. Cartman starts a fundamentalist cult, and Satan's love triangle with Saddam and Chris turns homicidal. Amid all of the story's twists and turns, it's also revealed that of all the world's religions, only Mormons get into the good place. While it's hard to say why Italia 1 left the two-parter off their playlist until 2006, the images of a priest having sex with a married woman and a deeply critical look at organized religion probably had something to do with it. A Ladder to Heaven revolves around Kyle, Cartman, and Stan's efforts to reach their late friend Kenny in heaven, along with the media frenzy that ensues when South Park's adults learn of their efforts. Unaware that the boys' act is not one of childhood innocence, but a misplaced attempt to get their hands on a winning all-you-can-grab candy prize ticket Kenny was hanging onto, the entire nation starts rooting for them, and country star Alan Jackson even writes an emotional song. As always happens in South Park, things escalate to the extreme. The whole thing turns into a space race with Japan. Cartman becomes possessed after accidentally consuming Kenny's ashes, and Saddam Hussein builds a WMD factory in heaven.
Weapons of mass destruction? No! This is a chocolate chip factory. See?
The 2002 episode takes aim at Alan Jackson's use of the 9/11 terrorist attacks to sell records, which Stone and Parker felt was an exploitative cash grab. Whether it was due to concerns over 9/11 sensitivity or the depiction of the Japanese government, the episode ended up being one of a handful of South Park episodes not to air during the show's first run in Japan. Although the depiction of Muhammad in Super Best Friends went largely unnoticed when it originally aired, most media outlets and production studios were doing everything they could to avoid offending an entire religion by 2006. As a network that typically didn't shy away from controversy, Comedy Central was still struggling to work out where South Park could draw a boundary with future depictions of the Prophet when Trey and Matt decided to take a crack at the discourse in the two-episode story arc Cartoon Wars.
If you hate a TV show, all you have to do is get an episode pulled. Pretty soon the show is compromised and it goes off the air.
Part analysis of the Muhammad controversy, part brutal savaging of Family Guy, Cartoon Wars begins with a typical South Parkian panic over the news that the Seth MacFarlane series intends to show a depiction of Muhammad in an upcoming episode. MacFarlane took it better than expected, calling the episode funny and accurate in a Rolling Stone interview, although he probably wasn't talking about all the stuff with the manatees. Regardless, the episode's content left the network feeling squeamish, and the version that made it to air included a title card explaining the scene rather than actually displaying an image of Muhammad. When HBO took over Comedy Central's catalog, they decided to completely dodge the issue by leaving the two-parter off the streaming app entirely, along with 3 other controversial South Park episodes. For the 200th episode of South Park, Trey and Matt decided to pull out all the stops by bringing back every famous figure the show had ripped on over the years, and the Prophet Muhammad was teased to be one of them. United under Tom Cruise, the celebrities who have been victimized by South Park all arrive in town to file a class action lawsuit against its residents. But there's a catch. Believing Muhammad to be immune from mockery and ridicule, Tom Cruise and company concoct a deal. If the good people of South Park will hand the Prophet over so they can take his powers, they will agree to drop the lawsuit. As with Cartoon Wars, the two-part storyline spent the first episode teasing Muhammad's appearance appearance, leaving fans to wonder if they would follow through in 201. And just like Cartoon Wars, the episode that aired was a censored version of what Trey and Matt had intended. When a foiled car bomb attempt was uncovered in Times Square soon after the episode's original airing, some speculated a link to South Park. Although one was never found, 200 and 201 would end up completely banned across most digital streaming sites, including Hulu, Netflix, and Max. Hurricane Katrina would mark one of the most devastating storms to hit the United States. By the time it was over, the Category 5 hurricane had taken 1,400 lives and flooded 80% of New Orleans, laying waste to the city's infrastructure and leaving hundreds of thousands of people displaced and unsheltered. Airing less than 2 months after these tragic events, a South Park episode 2 days before the day after tomorrow parodies the poor government, cultural, and media responses that arose in Katrina's wake. The drama begins when Cartman and Stan crash a boat into the world's largest beaver dam, causing the town of Beaverton to flood. Rather than focus on helping its residents, the world obsesses over where to lay blame. And when scientists land on global warming, mass hysteria ensues. The episode originally aired on Japanese television, but was later left out of Japan's Fox network's syndication schedule. There doesn't seem to be a consensus on why the episode was left out, but some have speculated it had to do with concerns over sensitivity to those victimized by Katrina and similar disasters.
Hello? Anybody? We'd like to be rescued, please.
No matter what the circumstances surrounding them are, spinal cord injuries are always tragic. However, the fact that Christopher Reeve rose to fame portraying Superman made the 1995 horse riding accident that left him paralyzed from the neck down that much more shocking. Shocking enough that even Trey and Matt felt he was off limits as fodder for South Park humor. But all that changed after they watched the 2003 Larry King interview with Reeve, which they saw as a sign that Reeve was losing it a little. The pair turned this observation into an episode that sees the actor traveling to South Park to deliver a speech in support of stem cells as medicine. Jimmy becomes so jealous that he and Timmy start a club specifically for people disabled from birth called the Crips, unaware that there's another group with the same name. While the South Park kids spiral into a gang war, Reeve goes around sucking the stem cells out of fetuses. Despite this disturbing content, the episode was originally slated to air in Japan, along with the rest of the season 7 run. However, Reeve died shortly before it was broadcast, so the Japanese network decided not to air it out of respect. Since no religion is off limits for South Park, it was only a matter of time before the show's creators put Catholicism in their crosshairs. That's exactly what happened in the season 9 episode Bloody Mary, which finds Randy Marsh transformed into a full-fledged hypochondriac after a stint in a 12-step program convinces him that he's afflicted by the disease of alcoholism.
I have to admit that I'm powerless to this terrible disease.
When rumors of a miraculous bleeding Virgin Mary statue begin to circulate, Randy becomes convinced she holds the key to his cure. Unfortunately, the episode's release coincided with the Catholic holy day, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. With its papal parody and statue of the Virgin Mary on her period, the episode sufficiently got quite a few high-ranking Catholics in a tizzy. President of the U.S. Bishops William Skeelstad felt compelled to pen an irate letter to Viacom, and after the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights got involved, the episode was left out of the end-of-season reruns in the US. In Australia, Melbourne Archbishop Dennis Hart's demand for the episode's censorship was initially met with dismissal, but its release was ultimately postponed until August 2006. The season 13 South Park episode Pinewood Derby finds Randy Marsh stealing a superconductor magnet from the Large Hadron Collider to give his son a winning edge in the statewide Pinewood Derby. When it hits warp speed, they get caught up in the aftermath of an intergalactic bank heist that ends with Randy bribing leaders around the world using a bunch of stolen space cash. The many world leaders impersonated in the episode include German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Italian PM Silvio Berlusconi, and French President Nicolas Sarkozy, among others. A minor controversy arose surrounding the portrayal of John Howard as Australia's Prime Minister, given that Kevin Rudd had been in office for well over a year at that point. There was also the fact that Vladimir Putin was misidentified as Russia's president rather than its Prime Minister. However, it was the episode's portrayal of Mexican President Felipe Calderon that got the episode cut south of the border. The episode depicts Calderon as leading from a rather dumpy, non-presidential looking office and wisely spending the nation's money on water parks. The network network airing South Park at the time was MTV, who originally listed the episode in their television lineup. In light of Calderon's portrayal, the network's execs felt it was a good idea to ask permission before airing, causing them to switch it out for a replay of the episode The Ring unannounced and leaving many Mexican South Park fans disappointed.